Yeah. So let's transfer to Saquon. Let's transfer the power. Saquon Barkley.
Look at me.
He had his presser. Uh, and they were needling him, trying to get a timetable and finding out where he is injury wise. And I'm sure this is kind of company line, but he would not give them anything. And they tried their hardest to like get like a status update. Are you ready for week 1? And he wouldn't give them a single thing. And I really do think they're going to try and ease him back in, which makes the Devontae Booker signing, make a little more sense where it's like, hey, they're actually going to need to rely on this guy a little bit. Which, with a player like Saquon, do you pound it? Like, even if he was fully healthy, is it maybe like you don't pound him into the ground and he's like, you give him his, actually, no, I take that back. If he's fully healthy,
I have a take on it.
Possibly. Yeah. But long story short, they're going to ease Saquon back into this. And I don't think we're going to see very much of him at all in training camp.
Yeah, no. And for that reason, I don't think you should ground and pound him early on in the season. Oh, because he didn't have that much training camp. It's been a while since I've talked about it, but the fantasy football data shows, and when you're talking about running backs and overall performance, I think sometimes it's helpful. Production, when you're talking about production, I feel sometimes looking at the fantasy football data is kind of helpful. So a lot of that data shows that, 1 year removed from an ACL injury, or in his case, he did like ACL, MCL, meniscus. I mean, he needed to wait almost like an entire week or week and a half for some swelling to come down so he actually can get surgery on it. But also, one of the good things is that I think he only needed surgery on the ACL and the rest of everything else recovered naturally. But neither here nor there. The data shows that it's going to be this year that Barkley's production may be maybe decent, maybe all right. But next year, and ironically enough, it'll be his contract year. Next year, there is like a perfect recipe for Saquon Barkley to have like an insanely really good year. You saw it with Marcus Golden. Marcus Golden, 1 year removed from the ACL, had a bad year in Arizona. Comes to the Giants, the second year removed from the ACL. He gets involved in a little bit of a better system, but also he has a really insane year. Same thing happened with Dalvin Cook. He tore his ACL 1 year, came back, and then last year it was like, boom, he really, really hit. And a lot of the data shows that that's a common trend among those guys. So I'm all for like easing Saquon back in, because Bobby, I think it is way more important for the Giants to have Saquon Barkley week 18, week 17, week 18 than week 1, because I'm looking back at the explosive play data from last year. The first 8 games of the season, not a single run of 20 plus yards by a running back. Through the first half of the season, Bobby Skinner, half of the season last year, the first 8 games, there's not a single run of 20 plus yards by somebody not named Daniel Jones. And I would like to think with Saquon Barkley on the field, that happens at least in the first 2 quarters of the season. So we need him. We need him here for the second half of the season. I don't want to rush him back and get him hurt in the regular season, early in the regular season, so then he's like working his way back or working through something. We need him here, so there is no excuses for this Giants team this year.
Yeah, and because we really didn't get to see him at all last year, man, I really do think we forget how special Saquon, like, and I'm not, like, when I say we, I'm talking about myself. Like, sometimes I forget, like, how special he is. And then you look at things, it's like, oh, yeah, he had more receiving yards week 1 than our running backs had all year. Like no running back, not even our running backs combined for one game matched what he did in that week 1 matchup versus Steelers. And it wasn't like he had like some crazy receiving game, where he was super involved. He basically like took 2 catches and gained a ton of yards with them. You mentioned that stat with the explosive, the big runs. Week 1 of 2019, the first drive, what happened? Saquon for 60 yards. Remember versus Buffalo. If you want to give Pat Trimmer credit or anything, it's his opening drives.
Yes.
Remember that first drive versus Buffalo? We ran the ball every single play. It was like 6 yards, it was 6 carries, like 75 yards for a touchdown.
Like, oh crap, is it going to be this easy this year? That's
yeah. And I remember after week 1, the talking point, like, they need to run Saquon more. And then the first drive, they literally ran him every single play and they scored a touchdown. So you do forget how special he is. So like you said, you don't want to rush him back and lose him later on in the season because he's forcing it, like kind of like they did with with DJ, where he's overcompensating to protect his hamstring, and then he sprains his freaking ankle in the game, and it's like this guy is like screwed right now. So
Yeah.
ease him back
I
in.
would just rather
when I say ease him back in, I don't think that means 50-50 carries. I think that means more maybe like, like I think easing Saquon in back in still equals like 15 carries,
oh
right?
yeah. And he averaged around 15 carries, 16. I mean, 15 carries is a lot of game, like
Well,
15
when
carries
you're
per game.
losing, it's a lot of carries. If
Yeah.
we're winning, hopefully it's a little more.
Yeah, because I mean, he averaged 15 carries per game his rookie year, and he had an insane rookie year. Also he got a lot of receptions too, and I don't think he's going to get that. Like, he's not going to get the same receiving work that he got his rookie year because Daniel Jones is not the same type of quarterback as Eli Manning. But really, what it comes down to, short talking point for Saquon with me. It's more important that he's on the field week 17, week 18 than he is week 1, because I don't want to be looking back at this season and having John Mara, Dave Gettleman, Jason Garrett, Joe Judge talking to us at the end of the season. Well, we didn't have Saquon, and that kind of hurt. So let's have him, even if it's bringing him along nicely in the beginning so he's up to full speed. And if he gets hurt, he gets hurt. You can't control it, but let's not force it at least in the beginning of the year.